Everyone, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we talk to Molly Prangley Desormeaux, all things acting, behind the scenes, and so much more. So, let's hop into the 11th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 11th episode of the Little Thespian Podcast. On today's episode, we have Molly Prangley Desormeaux. How are you, Molly?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's a crazy time right now, so I just want to check in with everyone before we start.
Yeah, no, it's definitely wild out there.
Yep. It's a crazy time now for theater too. It's finally coming back in a way. I was just a part of Cloak and Dagger's reading of You Can't Take It With You.
And, I've been seeing those.
It's so great to have the digital platform happening right now, but it's not the same. And hopefully everyone follows guidelines and whatnot ever, because here in Montreal, unfortunately, our numbers are going back up.
Yeah, it's been yeah.
So
Montreal is sketchy.
It is. And so guys, I'm just saying this first. Take this seriously, please. Wear your mask. Do everything you need to do, because I don't want to continue with the pandemic either. I want it to end eventually. So if you guys please follow all guidelines. But let's go into a brighter note. So welcome to the Little Thespian Podcast. And the first question I'm going to ask is a question I asked all my guests. How exactly did you get into theater, Molly?
I got into theater when I was very little. My parents met in the theater program at Bishop's, I think. And then my mom ran the Haskell Opera House for 25 years, and my dad was the technical director there. So ever since I was born, basically, we were always sort of surrounded by theater. And then growing up, I just always had this like great big long list of things that I wanted to be as an adult. And, you know, like the kids list of like, I want to be a superstar and a detective and a doctor. And I also want to be like, I don't know, an artist and stuff like that. And then it sort of clicked at one point where I was like, oh, I know something that can do all of these things. And so I decided to study theater because you can be whatever you want there. Yeah, so like all throughout high school, I had like a lot of theater influence as well. We had our like excellent theater chorus there, which is great. And then went off to John Abbott when I graduated.
So to go off of that, many people wanted to know, how exactly did you do both acting at John Abbott and the whole backstage basic course at Abbott, because you were there for a while.
I was, yeah, I was at John Abbott for 6 years. It wasn't something that people, like, it wasn't unheard of. There was, Skylar had done it before, although he went from tech into design, so he did like that half. And so it wasn't unheard of for people to do that. I think I was the first one to do acting and the other side, but it was really worth it for me. I learned so much, and I was already passionate about costumes and stuff going into acting when I first started. There was like maybe a 2-week period before starting school where I was like, I wonder if I should swap and just do design, because I really like making clothes. And sort of like decided like, no, it's fine. Like I'll stick with my original plan of going into acting. And then as I got closer and closer to graduating from acting in my 3rd year, I just sort of realized that I was not, I wasn't ready to go. Like something didn't feel finished with John Abbott in particular. And like I was getting such great connections with the teachers from the technical side, like Maggie and Leslie and Nadia as well. And just sort of really getting close with like Peter. And it's just like this whole other world of seeing like how people interact on the other side of the curtain, basically. And it was really, really fulfilling. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. It was really worth it.
Good. And I mean, to go off of that, also, I'm going to keep saying that because I like to just branch off of everything that we're saying.
Yes.
But I guess, do you have any words of wisdom for people that want to jump in to the other side, per se, either backstage or acting, or don't know what they want to do in theater?
Oh, I guess it's going to sound pretty obvious, but keep an open mind. Really, if you're going to do either acting or design or tech, it's all about your perspective of your relationship with everyone else. There's no real hierarchy in that sense of like lighting is not more important, wardrobe is not more important, the acting is not more important. Basically, if the actors didn't have techs, they'd be naked in the dark on nothing, is I think one of our teachers told us once. And it's like everything has a role to play. And so when someone on the other side says, oh, I'm tired, you really don't need to say like, oh, well, I am also tired, so you should be quiet. It's like, no. Everybody's tired. Everyone is working towards the same goal. So just be kind to each person and their work, because it's all accumulative. We are greater than the sum of our parts, basically.
And I guess that also plays off of the fact that we're all towards a common goal, right? We're all doing the same show, per se.
Yes, exactly.
And it's true. I had several of the backstage crew on last episode, and they were saying things that were foreign to me, but I was saying without them, we can't do what we do, and so on and so forth. Without lighting, it's so true.
It really is. No, like there are a lot of things, like working on design and being running crew and stuff, there was a lot of things that I, as an actor, just had like no concept of at all. Like just like the amount of work that it really is. It's not just, hey, look, I threw up some lights, or hey, I drew a picture, done. Like, no, there's so much revision and processing and like going back and taking things out and putting things back in and then rearranging them and then going back again and doing it again, and it's so much work. Whereas on the acting side, it is a whole lot of work for other reasons, where it's like learning the time period of where you are, like understanding where your character is coming from, or even if you have to play someone who's absolutely horrible, you need to understand the character. That doesn't mean you need to agree with what they're doing. If you're going to play a murderer, it doesn't mean, oh yeah, I'm going to murder people now. Like, it doesn't work that way. So it's equal amounts of baggage, but just in different contexts, really. It's work. It's a lot of work. So there's no side that's sort of getting off easy, really.
No, theater is definitely a hard profession, guys. No matter what facet you go into, it's complicated, to put it lightly. But yeah, you were saying in regards to just getting to the mindset of certain characters, and you have played Lear, who is very complex.
Yeah.
At Abbott, to say the least. I just want to jump into a bit of the acting with you, because I know that at Abbott, when I was there, when I focused just on acting, that was a lot for me. So I can only imagine going back in time and having to do several things acting-wise, and then jumping into a whole new world in design. So how exactly did acting become the first thing you wanted to do in theater?
Well, I think people join theater just because there's something about themselves that they either want to hide or they want to explore without shame. They want a safe space to kind of be like, oh, well, what if I did want to sort of break this, not necessarily a taboo, but to push boundaries and not have any real risks associated to it. And so when I was growing up, I did almost no risk taking in general. I didn't climb trees. I never broke a bone. I was by all means a chicken. And so I think subconsciously for me, I joined the theater because I was like, cool, now I can misbehave without actually misbehaving. But yeah, it was something that I had, if I do say so myself, I was always good at. It didn't require a lot of, how to phrase that? I didn't struggle to sort of come to terms with different things of oh, I would never. It's like, okay, cool. If I have to do this, then I have to do this. And so it just sort of came naturally to me to become other people and to sort of, again, observe and see things from their perspective, which always interested in me, is taking other people's perspective, really. The whole idea of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And just to sort of really see okay, so why would someone behave this way? And then why would I ever behave that way? And finding that connection there. And it was just exciting. And I think all actors can attest to getting on stage in front of an audience for the first time and just that sort of whoosh, that rush of oh, okay, so this is a thing now. This isn't just me saying words that I've memorized. It is now a tangible thing. And Lear was a great example of that for me, because it was just so much to memorize. I got a note from Andy once after one of our performances. And it didn't even say that it was directed at me, but it just sort of said in general, it said, scramble eggs, not your lines. Because, yeah, I really struggled with memorizing everything for Lear. But then stepping onto the stage in front of the audience, all of a sudden, it wasn't just reciting poetry or reciting iambic pentameter or anything like that. It was just, okay, we're telling a story now. It's a thing. It's not, it's come alive. And that feeling is just incredible of yes, we've made something alive. Like a mad scientist, I guess.
And I guess, was that the reason also why you do cosplay, is to also transform per se?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, I really like paying homage to these characters. And I also just sort of in general really like making stuff, whether it's like sewing or performing or writing or painting or just creation in general is something that really interests me. So cosplay for that is just absolutely great. Helps you practice all kinds of different um, aspects of your craft, whether you're an actor or a designer, because you build it and then you also sort of personify that character. It's just so much fun in general. It's like Halloween in the middle of summer. What more could you want than a warm Halloween? I was so sad when Comic-Con was canceled this year. I had a nice cosplay lined up, and it just didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, no, it's great.
I guess it also brings like both your worlds kind of into it, if you think about it. Because you make your costume, and then you also act as a character. So, yeah. So something that I also wanted to talk about is what would be like your dream role to play as an actor, and what would be your dream to design in a play? Like you know what I mean, basically.
Yeah. Oh wow. Shoot, my dream role.
I know it's hard. If
That is
people
such a
ask me
tough
this,
question.
I'm like,
it boggles. I mean, I've always sort of had a soft spot for. I am forgetting my soft spot. What is it called? Shakespeare play.
maybe if you like tell me the story, I might know.
It's the one with David Tennant and Catherine Tate, and
Much Ado About Nothing.
yes, thank you. It's like my favorite Shakespeare play, and I totally like. Yes, so I have always liked that play. And Beatrice is just such a fun character in general, and she's like spicy and holds so much anger in herself that I think women are not typically allowed to express. So I think I'd be interested in being Beatrice at some point in my life. Although I do think that there needs to be more sort of empowering roles written for women. I wonder, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but any plays that would necessarily pass the Bechdel test, which is there needs to be two female characters together in a conversation. They both have a name that you hear, and their discussion does not involve men at all. And it very rarely happens. And I think I'd be really keen to see more of that in theater. It's like really sort of feminist lens.
I definitely know from Shakespeare that there's none.
Yeah, Shakespeare definitely not.
Shakespeare nowhere near. But yeah, it's true. Yeah, because we did. I remember learning about the Bechdel test, and I'm like, it floored me that we're in a world now that is supposed to be very, equal. Still doesn't happen.
Yeah, just this idea of everyone's the same now.
Yeah, you can go on Netflix and look on something and nothing.
Yeah. Well, then there's also like this idea of when women do eventually sort of speak out and try to underline their own struggles, they're sort of demonized in a way of being like, oh, well, they're just trying to stir up trouble, or oh, they're like supporting this. Like there's a movie that just came out recently called Cuties, and it's called Les Mignonnes, and it's from France. It's like an indie film, and it's gathering so much controversy because when it was brought to American Netflix, the poster was changed to all of the young girls who are the main characters, and it's them in sort of dance mom outfits, so like really tiny shorts and tiny shirts, and they're like twerking and stuff on the poster. And so everyone is now saying that it's fodder for pedophiles and stuff like that. It's really not. The story itself is about how young girls, particularly in poor neighborhoods or through immigrant families, have no lens on how to interpret these behaviors, and like to know like, oh, okay, so maybe sex isn't the answer to like make me popular. Maybe twerking isn't what I really want. Like this isn't the right kind of attention. And that's sort of the whole plot. It's like little girls trying to understand the world and going through puberty and trying to understand their own bodies when they're just constantly hushed and told like, no, don't do that, it's bad. But you need to learn somehow. Or if you look at like Spring Awakening, and there's a girl who gets pregnant because she literally does not know how babies are made. And she tells her mother, she's like, you never explained this to me. How was I to know? And then she, spoilers, goes off and dies through a botched abortion. But it's a heavy topic, and it's very near and dear to my heart. So as a designer, possibly a writer, I would like to work more towards making stories for women, by women, and about women. There was a great play that we saw when we went to Edinburgh called Transcripts. And it was a series of interviews done with trans women, performed by women and trans women, or just women, because trans women are real women. And it was just so powerful to really see these honest expressions of their struggles, again, without censorship. And I think that's something that we really need in this day and age, especially, is to like stop stifling topics that make us uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know for me as an actor, I always love jumping into something that's very meaningful. And I'm making, or have been making, something of which will be coming to the Fringe very soon, of which dives into big topics like this, because my God, the world's crazy, and there are stories that need to be told. Not like, I love the classics, but there are reasons why they were made and certain time periods why they were made that don't work now.
Yes. Some things don't age well.
No, not at all. But yeah, I'm definitely one for that, and I'm hoping you could write or design anything like that, because I would love to watch it.
I will do my best when I'm not dying through university.
Yes. So to go off of that, so let's talk about university for a bit. So what are you studying, and can you talk a bit more about it?
Yeah. So after graduating from design, I thought, oh yeah, I'm done with school. Like that's enough. 6 years was enough. And then after about a year of only working, I was working in, or still am, I was working for a third-party video game company doing testing and player support and stuff like that. And it just, I could feel my brain going flat. Like just deflating, like one of those blow up mattresses that has like a tiny leak in it, and it's just like, this is great, oh, it's less and less great, oh, and now your back's on the ground. It wasn't working. And so I needed to do something besides just sort of like this dead brain work of nothing. Not to say that my job doesn't have it's fun. I get paid to play video games, so it's not all that bad. But so I started thinking about going back to school. I had considered going to the National Theatre School of Canada. That was very expensive, and my friend Winnie actually suggested to me to look into Concordia and their theatre program. And so I started leaning more towards going back into studying acting and maybe getting a full bachelor's degree as an actor. But at that point, it just didn't feel like it was serving much purpose. Like, I had already spent 6 years studying the theater specifically. Like, of course, you can always learn more, but it didn't feel like it was going to complement what I had already learned enough for me. And then I saw that they offer a master's program in drama therapy, which is like art therapy, but instead of painting your feelings, you act your feelings, or do them through puppets, or you write scenes and stuff like that. And that just like, it was like a light bulb going off in my head of like, yes, this is it. This is what I have been looking for. Like, it's something that means something. It is not just dead work that feeds into an abyss that will never fill. So to get to that goal, I actually have to get my bachelor's degree first. So I am studying psychology, which is very different from the past 8 years of theater. So studying psychology, I'm taking a minor in theater as well, just to sort of keep the practices in there. But yeah, so aiming to be a therapist one day with specifically like a theater lens. And I think that designing theater in particular might also have sort of new benefits that we haven't really looked at yet in terms of like drama therapy. Just to sort of be like, if you could put, if your anxiety or your depression looked like a person, what would they look like? How would they dress? Where would they live? Like build this person and personify that sort of feeling, and then interact with them and sort of give it a voice that's not just the tiny voice in the back of your head that you can't get a hold of, and just sort of making those feelings more tangible. It's something that I've been very interested in anyway. So yeah, working towards that. That's 3 years in the bachelor's and then 2 years for the major. So another 5 years in school. But it's been worth it, really. Like, as much as saying, like mildly complaining that I've been in school forever and I'm like a little bit of a professional student. But it's been worth it. Like, I don't think that I would have ended up where I am now if I hadn't done acting and then done design. If I had just done acting, I probably would be doing something very different right now. So it all sort of clicks into place, which has been nice.
I, for one, was floored when you first told me that you were doing drama therapy, because I'm like, what exactly is that? But honestly, it sounds incredible. And just it's great that you can actually like showcase how people might view their depression or anxiety, like you said, from their mind over onto the stage, or just drawing it or whatnot. That's incredible. And it's crazy because I've never heard of it before you told me, and it seems very interesting. So I definitely wanted to talk about that, because incredible. And you have another 5 years going for it, but I know it's going to be worth it. You seem very happy jumping into it, so I'm super
It's definitely been an interesting start, especially considering that I've been out of school for 2 years and was expecting to like meet all of these new people with different experiences and academic histories than I have, and then COVID.
Yep.
So I have yet to meet any of my classmates. In general, I think we've spoken a little bit on a Discord chat, but otherwise, there's really not much. I know Leslie's daughter Zoe. She's in my my biology class and my math class, I think. But because they're both done online and they don't really like it, it's sort of like half doing Zoom meetings or doing pre-recorded lectures. I haven't seen anybody yet. Really, it's a little disappointing, kind of sad. It's yeah, just that feeling of being like, I'm going to school today, and then getting up off of my bed and just moving 3 feet and sitting at my computer to go to class. It's a very different experience. I think it'll be interesting to see how this sort of generation of actors and writers and designers, what sort of influence this has on what we create as a result, like what kind of new patterns and themes that we're going to start to see. Probably a lot of isolation. But yeah, they've already been, I think, a couple movies and stuff about like doing things through Zoom. There was one, my old classmate Charlene has a podcast called Drinking and Screaming, which is fantastic, by the way. And they interview one of the actors from this movie. And yeah, it's sort of like a ghost possesses the Zoom meeting, and they all get like slowly murdered through Zoom. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, 2020 itself is going to be one hysterical history lesson down the road for high school students. But in terms of looking at it through what our artists start making, I think will be really, really interesting to look at.
I forgot who told me, but they were saying too, like the smaller companies, now that they have a platform that's very cheap to do, it's going to be very interesting to see what exactly comes to be during a year that many people want to forget.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, as awful as it is to say, struggle makes the best art. Pain makes the best art. It's so dark, but as all of us know, if there is no conflict, then you don't really have a story. Unless you're doing like, what is it, Krapp's Last Tape, where it's the whole play of him drinking beer, eating bananas, and listening to a tape over and over and over again. So nothing happens.
Or waiting for Godot.
So unless you're doing that, there's just no...
But yeah, I mean, if we want to go back to the Shakespeare wrote several of his plays when the plague was happening. So
that's true.
Maybe you're right, guys. Maybe this is the perfect time to write. The greatest writer did write during this time. So
very true. I mean, he did a lot of things. Shakespeare himself is like mildly problematic these days, but we're working on it. I don't know. I would need to look into that some more. But yeah, no, COVID has been such a curse, and then some like very tiny blessings sprinkled in. For example, I was working on a play called Hamlet with Axe to Grind Theater, and it was supposed to come out in April. It was supposed to be put on at the main line in April, and then COVID hit, and it all went poof. But at the same time, it's given the director like more time to spend with his family right now. They're like experiencing some difficulties in terms of their health. But like they just got a new puppy, and they have this beautiful little fluffy white puppy that they're taking care of now. And yeah, if COVID hadn't happened, I think that it would have been a lot more difficult for them to manage everything that was going on in their lives. And then even like smaller things, like I am taking 2 classes that I would not have been able to take if they weren't online, because they would have been at one like downtown and another one at Loyola campus, which is like 20 minutes away at least if there's no traffic. So yeah, it's such a strange time to really be alive and to be doing anything really. Like,
yeah,
it's different.
It's so different. Like, like I was saying, I was doing You Can't Take It With You as a reading, and I'm like, okay, so I have to act towards a camera, which is fine. I've acted for camera before. But okay, it's on my laptop and I have to be reading at a screen above me. Okay, great, cool. This seems very weird because I know I'm in my house. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like, it's different. Don't get me wrong. If that's what needs to happen for me to continue acting, sure. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's so different in 2020 now, where it's just like we're doing that, and then magically we hear these crazy stories that seem to be happening every month now. And it's like, guys, seriously, like a blue moon for Halloween.
Yeah,
What?
I saw a meme about how 2020 is actually someone had screwed up the timeline, and so a time traveler keeps going back to try and fix it, but they just make it worse each time. um, yeah, it you really like you don't know what to expect in the news each day. It's just something absolutely weird. Um, like who was it today? Like the leader of the Conservatives and the leader of the Bloc Québécois were both like told the public that they tested positive for COVID within a day of each other.
Mhm. And now we have
And then
Legault, same thing, getting
yeah,
late. So
yeah, and then RBG died today or yesterday.
yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, and Chadwick Boseman dying, and it just like it's all of these things. Like it is the worst timeline. 2020 is the worst timeline. I'm so scared for November
Mm.
and what is gonna happen to like oh
Yeah, the
we have to
minute
pray.
winter comes too, everyone should be isolating. But
Yeah,
it also depends in regards to when people isolate and whatever. What level are we going to be at in COVID? You know what I
yeah,
mean? Come November, because okay, then we're right next to 2021 pretty much.
yeah. Well, then there's
Right?
flu season coming up too, right? It's already
Exactly.
like kind of started. uh, and that is just sort of I think feeding into people's not paranoia but like fear of okay, do I just have the flu or do I have COVID?
Yeah.
um, and yeah, and just you had Terry as a teacher for like a couple classes, right?
Yeah, well,
um,
like adds like substitute sometimes and stuff
yeah,
like
and
that. Yeah.
one of Terry's favorite things to tell you is that you need to listen.
Mm.
You need to listen. You need to, and he'll do that, and then you need to listen. Um, and for my 3 years there, I was just sort of like, yeah, I get it, Terry. Listen. Sure, I get it. I understand. And then after graduating, I was like, oh, I see. It's not just listening to hear, but listening to really sort of understand and sort of building that empathy for whoever you're working with. And just people in general these days, I find, lack that sort of consideration for other people so much. It's all about like me, and it's like, okay, but you're not listening. We're saying that this isn't just about you, that it is about everybody. And if you're going to wear a mask that you can literally make yourself in like an hour with an old t-shirt or a cotton shirt or sheets or something and shoelaces, you have a perfectly functional mask that you made from stuff around your house. And by doing that, you're going to be like saving other people, and then they just, oh, my freedoms, like I don't want to. It's so ludicrous. Of like, okay, if we're wrong, what happens? You wore a mask, like no, it's the same thing when people are like, oh, well, like climate change isn't real, and it's like, okay, cool. If it's not, what are the consequences of clean energy? We made it better. Um, yeah, and I think COVID is really just sort of highlighting all of that sort of lack of lack of empathy, lack of even wanting to empathize with other people.
You definitely see during this time of really like who thinks only of themselves and who thinks of others. You know what I mean? And it's true. You are speaking very truthful right now, and I love it. Because I think the exact same way. What's the difference of wearing another piece of clothing? I don't understand. Like, okay, it's covering your mouth. Okay.
In Quebec, I think it's especially interesting given, was it Bill 21, was it, that came out that like
ironic,
prohibited,
right?
Yeah, no face coverings for you unless it's COVID. But that's its own thing, that Quebec has its own set of problems that I think are also being aggravated because of COVID. And like, it's even the Black Lives Matter movement and George Floyd and everything that happened there. It's all being brought to the surface, and because people have nowhere to go, they have nowhere else to look as well. It's sort of being like, good, you can't move. Now let us underline absolutely everything that is wrong. Because you can't ignore us now. There's nothing else for you to do but to listen. Although they will do their best to not. They will fight you every step of the way to not understand if they don't want to.
But it's true, because we're talking about how art's going to be affected by 2020. I can only imagine the amount of stuff that's going to come out because of the Black Lives Matter movement and all these big movements that are happening now because voices are finally being heard. You know what I mean?
Like these very necessary changes, like pointing out the flaws in our society, like in the systems that we have right now, that if it is broken and cannot be fixed, it does not serve you. So why do you keep using it? And within that thought, it's the same thing to our judicial system, to our police forces. It's like, if it is not serving you, why do you just keep repeating the use of it? Like, why do you not try and make it better? And like, it's just saying like, oh, it's a few bad apples or anything like that. It's like, no, then why don't you work to not have bad apples, instead of just saying like, oh, it's only these 3 things? Why leave it there? Like, why not try to fix the 3 things? Like, I've never understood that, of realizing and acknowledging that there is something wrong with anything, but continuing to use it broken rather than fixing it or replacing it. And it's one of the things that I'd really like to see change, of like actually moving forward and trying to make things better instead of trying to improve your support in the elections coming up, or to maintain amassing wealth that like serves nobody except you. It's a label. It's nothing else. It's a bunch of zeros in your bank account, but you never use it for anything. You can buy all your nesting yachts and you'll still be a billionaire. And then there are little women who have no access to like menstrual products, like, or feminine products of any kind, or like they're getting taxed for it, or the fact that I'm pretty sure in Quebec it is not illegal to take unwanted pictures of somebody, and so women have all of these pictures of like guys just in the street being like, oh, click, but if there's no intent to distribute, then it's not illegal. And it's like, okay, so why don't we work towards maybe making that not okay? There are so many things. I'm sorry, I ramble.
No, believe me, it's very insightful, and I really enjoy that we're having these big conversations, because it needs to happen. And yeah, I mean, overall, I would have to say 2020 and just voices being heard needs to continue. We need to have more conversations like this.
Yeah, the voices need to keep being heard.
And it's good because recently, I also talked about how Dawson was dealing with his allegation with Winston. And finally, I am very glad to say that we did make a scene and Winston has been fired. I am very glad that we're having these conversations and we need to continue.
It's important. I think especially what's happened with Dawson is a very important, very late, but first step. It should have ended in 2017 as soon as all of those allegations came out immediately. Like 20 plus women came with these very serious allegations of like mental abuse and inappropriate touching, and just 20 plus. Like that's so many. And to then realize that he like went back to teaching like one semester later, like not even, it should have ended there. But he is no longer working at the college. Hopefully he stays not working at the college. Hopefully he doesn't return back to teaching. But I feel for those women who were affected or taken advantage of, or I hesitate to call them victims because I am not one to sort of be like, you are a victim and nothing else. But I see them very much. There have as as a woman, I am no stranger to that sort of unwanted attention in general. And the other thing is that a lot of people don't understand or don't recognize right away is that abusers and pedophiles and people who like sexual shots and stuff like that, it is not because of how you dress or how you act. They will assault you or abuse you, or they will commit this injury regardless. It is not your fault, and it is never the victim's fault. Ever. It is not the victim's fault, because little girls shouldn't have to worry about what they wear to make men feel more comfortable, or to like decrease the risk. It's like, no, don't decrease the risk by making them change what they wear. Decrease the risk by removing it's more of the same of the system is not working. It's very clear that our system is not working. It worked at Dawson finally after 2 years of multiple women coming forward and sharing their stories publicly, which is something that is so difficult to do with anyone who's sort of like an aggressor towards you. It can be very triggering and very painful, and to have it sort of raked over again and again and again. And it should not be this difficult to see change manifested, or to like see results in this kind of allegation specifically as well. Like it took too long, and my thoughts are with the women and their families, like every day of just.
Those are also for the 20 that only came out, right?
Exactly.
Who's to say there's not many more.
And there certainly could be.
But yeah, our thoughts and prayers are definitely out to everyone that has had and have dealt with it. And I guess to lighten the mood before we have to go, I want to ask you, how does your future look now? Are you very with all the now drama therapy that you'll be doing? How do you see your future looking out? Do you see being a full-on therapist and revolve to that? Are you thinking of going back into acting at any point? Are you going to do acting on the side?
I would very much like to keep acting and design both as like an active part of my life. Like I don't ever want to stop doing either of those things. There might be dry spells, but I don't think I will ever fully quit being an actor or being a designer. It was like when I wasn't doing any of that, like I said, I could just feel myself deflating. So I think without it, that I would just have like no quality of life. So I think those two things will always be a part of my life. In terms of drama therapy, this whole thing with Dawson has actually sort of gotten me thinking about, I think John Abbott started doing it. They now have like a student representative, kind of like an equity deputy. Yeah, I've been thinking more about maybe sort of taking what I learn as a drama therapist and bringing it to like theater departments, maybe to provide support, or to just sort of have a neutral party that is not quite faculty and is not quite staff, but it has like a very intimate knowledge of how things work within a theater context. But again, also I'm very passionate about women's rights and making unheard voices heard and bringing them forward. And so maybe opening up a practice for women or something. Who knows? There's quite a lot of possibilities that I've been interested in. Like like I said, I've had my fill of just sort of working passively day in and day out, of repeating the same tasks again and again, and not contributing to making a difference in our world, in our society, within our hometown. I'm tired of just existing. I want to exist with a purpose now, and maybe that's a little bit selfish, but I would like to serve a purpose other than to just work 9 to 5 and go home at the end of the day and wake up and do it again. That is, if that is what floats someone's boat, like if that's what they want, fantastic, power to you. I'm not knocking that lifestyle at all. If that's what you enjoy, fantastic. I'm so glad for you. But for me, I need something else. I need a different recipe.
Well, I can definitely say, and unfortunately, we are at the end of the episode, but I can definitely say that just by our conversation today, I think hopefully it makes a difference, because there are so many things that need to be changed in 2020 and just in the world in general. I don't like looking on the news and seeing something very depressing, but unfortunately, I don't watch the news anymore because it's just that. And I try not to look at the numbers anymore for COVID because it's just depressing.
It's a lot to handle.
It is. And hopefully, with you doing drama therapy and everything else, hopefully we have a huge change that happens, not just in the theater department, but globally, after this crazy year ends. So thank you, Molly, for being on. It was
You're very welcome. I was very happy and excited when you asked me. This is not something that I've ever done before, so my apologies if I just sort of filled a lot of airtime.
It was great. I loved it, and I'm sure the audience loved it as well.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really nice. It's been I live with my roommate Sarah, and we each have a cat. And though they're about the only people that I have seen in person for weeks, so this has been very nice. It's been great. Thank you.
No, it's incredible. I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope everyone else has as well. If you guys did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. And check out all my socials and Molly's socials down below. So I'm going to tell you who's coming on next week, and then unfortunately I need to say goodbye to Molly and shed a light on her. But next week we will be having Patrick coming on, Patrick Garneau, from John Abbott as well. And we might be doing some singing. We're going to see. So that's going to be fun. But that's next week. And this week, we are going to shine a light on Molly. My God, Molly, you were doing so much. Even though, unfortunately, you haven't really done much in regards to leaving the house. Just by talking with me, I can see how passionate you are, and I cannot wait to see the amazing stuff you do as a drama therapist. I'm super happy for you. And I cannot wait to see where your future holds, whether it takes shape in acting, behind the scenes, or just as a therapist. There is not a big enough light to shine on you, because my God,
You make me cry.
I always do this because I need to, because the amount of stuff we were talking about today, it needs to be heard, and we have to continue using our voices. And your bubbly personality is just amazing to have on the show. So thank you so much for being on.
Well, thank you for spreading some positivity and some light in these very, very dark times. I think people need that more than anything right now.
Yeah. And I'm going to continue doing it. So
good.
If you want to continue seeing this, which you guys seem very excited every time I put out an episode. So we'll see you all in the next episode, episode 12 with Patrick Garneau. Thank you so much, Molly. Bye.
Bye.
The lights are off. The curtain has fallen. And it's time to say goodbye. Thank you all for joining us on the Little Thespian Podcast. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask, either down below or on any of our platforms. On the next episode, we talk to the amazingly talented actor, singer, dancer, and just all-around great guy, Patrick Garneau. I truly cannot wait to talk to Pat all things musicals, all things dance, and just all things theater. It's going to be a great time, and we might even do a duet for you guys. So hopefully you guys are going to enjoy that. And if you guys want us to sing, let us know down below or on any of our platforms. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, don't forget to check out all our social platforms down below. Both mine and Molly's are down there. And guys, don't forget to like this video. It really helps us out. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to us here on YouTube. It definitely helps out, guys. So please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps out tremendously. Also, guys, thank you for the amazing support during all these episodes, and we cannot wait to do many, many more for you guys. Hopefully you guys are going to enjoy episode 12 once it hits very soon. And thank you all for watching or listening. This has been your host, Matthew Crandall, telling you guys to always shine bright during such a dark time. So, hopefully you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you all on the next Little Thespian Podcast.